Hey guys, back with some more Bazaar, and today we are doing a beginner's guide to the Bazaar. We're going to be covering everything in a reasonable amount of detail. I think I've got everything that I need. And on a first note, if you haven't subscribed, liked, or dropped a comment down below, please do, because it does help the channel out a lot. So, first what we have is, what's the game about? So, the Bazaar is, they call it the first hero builder game. So what it is that we're building a deck for our character. We have a board, and what that is like we have items on that board of different sizes, and we have skills, and we have different characters, and we build it in different ways in order to win against other people who are doing the same thing. So that's kind of the gist of the game. We have two different types of the game. We have normal versus ranked. I'll just pop into the Bazaar to show you the difference now. So we can see here that we have two different modes. We have ranked here, which we can see here rewards us with chests up here. And then we have normal, which is just regular games, no rewards, and we just are going for 10 wins. So what is the game and how do we play? We've kind of explained, the gist of the game. It's a hero builder, but like what are we actually doing? What's the goal? How is the game structured? Because we know we want items and skills. We have a board of some kind, but like, what do we actually do? So what it is we can see here, this area in the middle is our deck. And now we have 10 slots. Okay, so we have room for items and we have 10 slots. And small item takes up 1, a medium item takes up 2 slots, and a large item takes up 3 slots. Okay. And so what we can see here, we have our stash. So this is for storing other items that we don't want to use right now. We might want to use later. And then we have our bank here. So the gold. So the gold we want to spend on items. We want to spend on skills and other things of that kind. So the actual structure of the game, besides all of that, is here. So we operate in days here and hours. So right now it's hour 0 on day 1. And you can see here that we have 6 hours in a day. Okay, and at the end of the day, we have a PvP fight in between each day. And then at this point, at the middle of the day, we have a PvE fight or a monster fight. And then in each other hour, we will have an encounter of some kind. So the aim is to get to 10 victories. And we can earn chests in rank mode at 4, which is a bronze tier victory, at 7, which is a silver tier victory, and 10, which is a gold tier victory. And if we do it perfectly, flawless, without any losses against another player, we get a perfect victory or a diamond victory. So then we have prestige. So losing fights against players results in prestige loss equal to the day. So if we lose on day 1, we're going to lose 1 out of 20 prestige and we'll go to 19. And if we go to 0, we go to sudden death, so our last opportunity. And if we lose after getting sudden death, that's when we fail. And we lose the game, no matter where we're at. So we just get a bronze victory or a silver or an unfortunate journey if we get below 4. If we get below and we hit sudden death and then we lose again, then our run ends. So on the topic of ranked before, we have the ranked system. So we can see here, I'm at gold right now. And these are our ranks. So we start at bronze, then we go to silver, gold, diamond, and legendary. Legendary is kind of different. You get a number ranking and you get like an MMR instead. We have some rewards here as well for getting to certain ranks. But we can see here, these little pips here is what we get. So we can see at this rate, if I get a silver win, I get 1 pip. So I gain 1. If I get a bronze one, I get nothing. Unfortunate, I get nothing. So, and if I get a gold win, I get 2. So once we complete all 5 of these, then I would go to gold 4. And then again, I would go to gold 3, 2, 1, then to diamond 5, then 4, 3, 2, 1, then legendary. So that's what ranked is about. How do we play ranked? We use, up in the top right here, we have rank tickets. If we don't have any rank tickets, we also get 1 free one a day. But if we don't have any rank tickets here, what we do use is gems instead, the in-game currency, which you can purchase, but typically you will earn a profit on gems if you play ranked and you have a reasonable win rate. Typically you earn more gems than you would lose by spending it on playing a ranked match. And you don't just get those gems automatically, you get them from chests, but we'll explain that later. So, how do we actually like play the game? Like, how do we win is up next. So, how do we win? Damage or we just survive. That's kind of what it comes down to. So, we'll just go through some damage types quickly. So we have regular damage. So the things you'd see on weapons, they'll have like a red thing above them. I'll just show off some of them now. So I picked the enchanted item start here, and we can see we've got a couple of different options, and we're going to talk about damage types now. So damage kind of just comes from 3 different instances. So we have regular damage from something like a weapon. So we have Obsidian Spider Mace, where we're dealing 10 damage on use. Or most items will have a cooldown as well, but we'll go into that later. So we can see here it deals 10 damage, and then we also have Toxic Ruby, so we burn for 3, and then we also poison equal to this item's burn. So burn has 2 procs per second, so it does damage equal to the burn on your enemy two times a second, and then it also decreases by 1 each time that it like procs, right? So 2 times a second, it'll go, if say we burn them for 3, it'll do 3 damage, then it'll do 2 damage, then it'll do 1 damage, and then it'll go down to 0 and not do any damage after that. Poison is slightly different. So if we were to poison for 3, which it doesn't say here, but it would, if we poison for 3, it will do 3 damage a second. It's only once a second, but it won't leave unless they heal it. So that's the difference between poison and burn, is that poison doesn't just disappear, but burn does. But it does effectively double the damage in the amount of time it takes, because it goes twice a second. So those are the damage types. Now we'll just talk about heal and shield quickly. So I've got a neat little screenshot from Lef on the Bazaar Discord, and I'll just explain heal quickly. So what we have here is a large item, and that green tab at the top is the amount that we're going to heal for. So we can see their total HP down here at 10,760. And what that means is that effectively what we're going to do, what effectively we're going to be doing is we're going to be healing for 513 out of that 10,760. And then it's also going to burn for 51, because that's the enchantment that's on it right now. Same thing for the 50 here. So we're going to heal for 50. And this item does some funky stuff, but we won't talk about items in particular. We can see here, this one here, it does damage and heal. And that's effectively heal. Now what heal does, which is kind of unique, is what it does is it does like purge. So if we have poison or burn on us, and we heal 5% of that total amount, so in this case, 513, 5% is like roughly 25, it'll heal, it'll get rid of 25 burn or poison, right? So it heals, it gets rid of that like burn or poison every time we heal effectively. And it's a minimum of 1. So if we heal for 1, it'll get rid of 1. That's the uniqueness of heal. All right, so now we have shield. So we can see here, this yellow at the top is shield. And what that does is that instead of healing our actual HP bar, what it does is it gives us, it's kind of like an overhealth thing. So it gives us shield on top of our HP. And it's kind of unique in the sense, it's just extra HP is the way that we can think about it. But what is important is that poison goes under shield. Poison affects your HP directly, whereas burn only does half damage to shield. So that's the important bit, is that burn only does half damage to shield. So instead of doing 2 damage if we had 2 burn on us, it would do 1 if we had shield. And it ticks it down more slowly, essentially. But poison doesn't affect shield and goes straight to our HP. That's kind of what shield is a little bit more simple. There's no purge or anything when it goes on. It's just extra HP, effectively. So now that we've talked about those, we'll talk about something slightly different, which is haste and slow. So haste and slow are 2 different mechanics that either make items go twice as fast or twice as slow. So slow being making them go twice as slow, and then haste making them go twice as fast. So what that means is that we want slow on our enemy's board, and then we want haste on our own board, so our own board can go quicker. And what we have here is we have a couple of different items. So we have this guy here, and we have the 3 times cast here. So when this item goes off, it will go 3 times, and it will do slow. So essentially what it means is that if we have an item on our enemy's board, and we hit it 3 times with this slow, and let's say that item takes 10 seconds to go off. With slow, it would take 20. If that item 10 seconds was hasted, it would take 5 seconds. Haste doubles the speed, slow halves it. It's that simple. So when you see these haste effects, know that it doubles the speed of an item and then slow halves it. So now that we've talked about, damage, we've talked about poison and burn, haste, slow, heal, shields, let's talk about our actual win cons. Like, how do we win a fight in PvP? So we can either just deal damage to them and take away their entire HP, which is, what burn, poison, and damage is for, or we can survive longer, which is kind of what shield and heal is for. So what happens after 30 seconds in a game, it's either 30 or 20, the Sandstorm arrives. So what the Sandstorm is that it's just essentially think like the storm in Fortnite. You can only play the battle for so long, and eventually there's this thing that just does progressively more and more damage to each player, and more and more and more and more, and it exponentially increases until the player with either more HP, more heal or shield will last longer than the other one. It goes until either player hits 0, basically. So if the Sandstorm hit and player had 100 HP, the other one had 90, let's just say as an example, the person with 100 HP would last longer in the storm. That's kind of how it is. But, if the player with 90 HP had 20 shield, then they'd last longer. So that's what the Sandstorm is, and that's kind of our win cons, is that we either just get rid of all their HP using something like damage, or we survive longer using something like heal or shield, or regeneration, which I have just missed, but I'll touch on that briefly now. So we can see here, there's a slightly different green up here and down here. Now we have heal, but we also have regeneration, and we can see it on the HP bar as well. So what regeneration does is it heals us for this amount once per second. All right, so essentially what this is instead of just flat out healing, it doesn't do the same effect. So let's say we have 100 regen, it wouldn't get rid of 5 burn and poison a second. That's not what it does. It just gives us that HP back for that amount once per second. So let's say we had, 500 poison on us. If we had 500 regen on us, because poison activates once per second, we would sit at the same amount of HP. That's what regen is. It's different to heal. And that's one of the ways. It's like heal, shield, and regen. Those are like the survivability win cons of the Bazaar. So yeah, regen, heal, and shield make you survive longer, in essence. So that's how we win. We need 10 wins to get a gold victory, 7 to get silver, 5 to get bronze. I just forgot to put this in the slideshow, but now we will also explain enchantments, and in doing that, I guess we can also see the different effects of things and like what they actually do. And we've already explained some of them. I'll just explain freeze quickly now because I don't believe I touched on it. So freeze means that our items cannot activate and their cooldown can't progress naturally. So if an item is frozen, like it can still get charged. So some items can get charged and it skips cooldown a little bit, but it can't activate on its use and it can't progress its cooldown naturally either. And we will just go through the rest of the enchantments quickly and we'll kind of get like a gist, I guess, of, what everything else does. So we've explained what heal, shield, damage does. We've explained slow, we've explained turbo. So we kind of get an idea. Now, crit chance is the other one that I haven't mentioned. So criticals, they double the effect of something. So if we are burning and we crit with a burn item, it'll put double the burn on them. And if we're doing damage with a damage item and we crit, we do double the damage. So now, with all that in mind, we'll go into these enchantments and we'll just see what they do on our items. So I just quickly want to touch on enchantments. So we have a bunch of different ones here. All of the enchantments here on QS are all of the enchantments in the game. So heavy gives it slow. So when this item activates, we're slowing 2 items, which is that half speed thing. Golden is a special enchantment which gives it double value for value related items. It has some kind of value effect. Icy is a freeze effect, so whenever Kiosk goes off, we're freezing a medium or small item for 3 seconds. Turbo is haste. Shielded is shield. So, for this case, if with a burn item, we would shield equal to 10 times this item's burn. Restorative is heal with the same scaling as shield. Toxic is a poison enchant, so we poison somehow. Fiery is a burn enchant, so we just do some burn. With this case, because it's a burn item, it would be double. Shiny gives things multicast, or like a double the amount of something. So if it was on a passive item, it would typically double its effects. Deadly gives crit chance of some kind. In this case, it's a bit more specific, but typically it'll be like you get plus 50% crit chance. Radiant means that the item can't be frozen, slowed, or destroyed, or even targeted by any of those things. Obsidian gives it like a damage effect, or just gives it a weapon tag, basically, where we deal damage. So in this case, we deal damage equal to 10 times this item's burn. That's all the enchantments in the game. It is... So the only ones that aren't available are shiny and golden. These ones you can't find in your level 10 or your sudden death reward. You can't find these ones. And that's where you find them, by the way, is level 10 on sudden death. You can also find them as random encounters. And then you can also buy them. Buy enchanted items from merchants. Some merchants will have these enchantments. So now what we have is XP, gems, and the prize pass. So we've talked about, the way that the game works, how we win the game, what different game types, but what do we actually get from games, and how do we play them? So we've talked about this briefly, and I'll just go into the game quickly to showcase all this. So we're talking about XP. So we can see here, this little wheel here is the amount of XP we need to upgrade a level in the prize pass. So I'll just explain the mechanics of XP quickly and how it works. So we can see here we have our daily challenges, which if we have the subscription, we get double for everything. But if we don't, we complete these challenges like earn 80 gold, buy 20 items that cost 10 gold or less, and then we would get 200 XP, which contributes to the prize pass. So how much XP do we actually need to level? So we can see here, prize pass, how does it work? So each prize tier requires 500 XP. And we can earn up to 600 XP per day by completing the daily challenges. That's if we have the subscription. If we have the subscription, that's 1,200 XP. Now, we can earn up to 1,500 or 3,000 XP per week by doing the weekly challenges. And then we can do 5 XP per completed day in a run and 10 XP bonus at 4, 7, and 10 wins. So let's say we get 10 perfect wins in 10 days. We would get 50, and then we would also get 30 on top of that, basically. So this got buffed this season, so we get more XP because the prize pass is a lot larger. So now let's explain gems, the prize pass. We've been talking about the prize pass. We'll go through this first. So what is the prize pass? So we have to earn XP from challenges from playing the game, and we either get rank tickets, so we get a ranked game for free, or we get a seasonal chest. However, we also get other rewards. So we can get expansions for characters. So this is more cards on a certain character. We can also get cosmetics, we can get, rugs and stuff. And there's just lots and lots of stuff we can get. We have another expansion here, and it's typically around every 10. It does get a little bit more, rare. We don't have one at 50 there, but we do have one at 60. We have the skin for Vanessa. And then we also don't have any at 70, but we do have one at 80. We have Tides of Pelago. And then we don't have any at 90, but we do have one at 100. We have the legendary board, Pelago Palace. So that's the prize pass. But how do we actually earn gems? Because we need gems to unlock characters. So what that is from chests. So chests give you gems. So if we go into here, and let's say I go into the information button down here, we can see here that each chest guarantees 35 gems, and additional gems are distributed as follow. So, typically every 50%, there's a 50% chance to just get 0 bonus, so we get 35, and then these are the bonus amounts of gems. I've never ever gotten 10,000 gems, and I've never seen a screenshot of someone who has. But then from chests, we also get collectibles, so we can get, a bunch of different stuff. We can get skins, rugs, albums, all of this stuff, which we'll discuss collectibles in a little bit. But that's chests. That's how we get gems as well. We've talked about how we get rank tickets as well in the prize pass. We also get 1 free rank ticket a day. Now, there are other prizes. So we had a look at it earlier in ranked. But if we go up here and we go to rank rewards, we get rugs as a prize. And then we can also go in here to subscriptions. Subscriptions, you can get a little bonus as well. If you are subscribed, they give you a little item here. And then we also have the Bazaar. We have the shop. So the shop, we have a daily special, and then we have a weekly special. And they vary in amounts. You can just buy them with cash, or you can buy them with gems, in-game currency. That's kind of all of the ways, like all of the prizes. So, you know, XP, gems, and all of that. So if we want to get to the end of the prize pass, I think you should be playing the game once per day, or however long it takes to do these quests. I think it's possible to get to the end with the XP, because you just get XP from playing the game. So it is possible to get to the end of the prize pass just by playing the game without the subscription. In theory, it would be much, much, much more difficult than if you had the subscription. It would, you know, that makes it a lot easier, but it's possible. So now that we have touched on, you know, some of the basics and the way that the game works, how rewards, XP, stuff like that, let's start talking about the game itself. So the most core part of the game are our items. You know, that's probably what matters most. If you don't have any items on the board, then you don't do anything. So we have 3 different sizes and categories of items. So we have small, medium, and large. So we have 10 slots on our board, and small takes up 1 slot, medium takes up 2, and large takes up 3. And then we have a passive and an active item. So passive items will not activate. They won't have a cooldown, but they typically will do something when something else happens, or they will do something that's kind of meta to your board, like give all of your items multicast, so all of your items will go off once more when the cooldown goes to 0. So that's, and then active items, they all have like cooldowns, and they do something after, you know, 10 seconds or 8 seconds or however long they take to cast. They do something. Now, some active cards do have passive effects as well. These aren't exclusive things. Like you can have like, let's say there's this item Pylon, for example, which slows after like 4 or 5 seconds. It's a large item, but it also has a passive effect that when you slow, you also haste. So like you have passive items, like you have Robotics Factory, a large item that gives all your friends multicast. It just doesn't do anything. It's just a large block on your board, but then all of your friends gain multicast. So those are our items. Now we have something else. Now we have, I believe, skills. So skills we can see are like, you know, they're little things on the bottom of our screen. And if we go back to the builds that we were looking at earlier, we can see skills here. So we can see here at the bottom, we have skills that are like a passive kind of effect. So like we can see here, we have, I believe this is right-handed. So this here at diamond will give our rightmost weapon 50 more damage. And then I believe this is like prosperity or something. So all of your shield items will have more shield equal to the value of your items. And then, you know, this one here, so these are all like, you know, they're essentially free buffs to your board without actually having to put something on there. Now they have, you know, requirements to activate, like this one here. This is the first time you use a large item. So a large item here, the first time you use this here, this bone or femur, you will freeze an item for, you know, 5 seconds or however long it is at diamond. So we, you know, we obviously also have tiers of skills like we do with items, which I should have mentioned. Items, they do have tiers. We have bronze, silver, gold, diamond, and legendary items. Now you can upgrade from bronze to diamond, but you can't upgrade from diamond to legendary. Legendaries are their own respective tiers. They're separate from the rest of that pool. And it's the same thing with skills here. So we have diamond, we have gold, we have silver and bronze, and then we can also get legendary skills as well. So now there's also 2 different like kind of categories of skills we can get, which are our character's skills. So, you know, skills like right-handed here, which is a skill that Pig can get. But then we also have monster skills. So we can see here, we have a couple of skills here that are monster skills, which you get from fighting a monster typically, and just getting the skill as a reward. Or you can get it from a vendor that does sell monster skills as well. So monster skills are typically like a unique effect. So we can see here, this one here, gold, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's the first 5 times that we use an item on our board, we charge an item from another hero. So let's say we were playing as Pig here and we had a Mac item on board. We use Pig, it would charge it 1 second the first 5 times we use a Pig item. So like monster skills are typically more unique. They do different things. Whereas, you know, your character's skills are typically more suited to your character in like more specific ways. Like we can see here, like this person's doing 19,000 damage. The 50 more damage isn't really affecting it that much. But, you know, he might have more things that affect it a little bit more. Like, you know, the first time you use a large item, you heal. And, you know, more value on your rightmost item here as well. Like, there's particular skills will do more for your board. So we've talked about skills, and we just mentioned the tiers as well. So now what we are going to talk about are encounters. So in each hour of the day, we get an encounter of some kind. Now, what are the different types of encounters? We have monsters, merchants, character-specific encounters, and then we also just have other, you know, more random encounters. And we'll just quickly go onto a great resource called Bazaar DB and go through a couple of examples of each one. So we can see here we've got merchants. So merchants are an encounter where you go and you spend your gold to get items, and items specifically. So that's what a merchant is. You specifically are getting items, not skills, not, you know, other sort of effects or bonuses, not certain rewards. It's item specific. You get items from merchants. You can see Ayla, it's a merchant, sells weapons. Aimbot sells crit items. Like, they all do different things, and I won't go through all of them. But I will touch on briefly, you know, certain vendors appear for certain like characters. So we can see here we have Flex, a merchant. This one only appears on Pig. And then we have Ellie or Eli, who only appears on Mac because they sell potions. Then we have Prospero, who only appears on Pig. Nordica, who only appears on Vanessa. So we have, you know, unique to our characters, we have, you know, like specific merchants. So that's merchants, and typically we would get one of these in each hour, which isn't a monster fight or a player fight. But let's go to monsters here. So we can see here, so once a day we have a guaranteed monster fight in that 3rd hour. And we can see here day 1 we've got a bunch of different monsters, and what it does is it rewards us with gold and XP. And now XP contributes to us leveling up, and that's another crucial part is XP in game, we level up, and that gives us more rewards, it gives us more health, that's how we scale. And monster fights basically enable us to do that because we get a significant bonus. And an important note here is that in the first couple of days, like 3 or 4, you do not want to lose a fight. If you lose a fight, unless you get a random encounter in order to fight another monster, you will be behind on XP and therefore behind on HP and a lot of other things. Besides that point, monsters. So, hour 3, we fight a monster, we get gold, we get XP, but we also get a random reward. So if I defeat Bananable here, I will either get Healthy Jolt, Duct Tape, Blue Nanas, or Medkit. You get something from them. And if I fight, let's say, you know, Foreman, I will either get Flashing Mechanic or one of the items on their board. And now certain monsters are worth more and worth more XP. So all monsters are worth 3 XP at base, which includes the 1 XP that you get on each node, on each hour. So Bananable at bronze is worth 3, Viper at silver is worth 3, and then we have Borea at gold is also worth 3. But then if we go to our first diamond one, they're worth 4 XP. And then if we also go to our first legendary one, they're also worth 4 XP. So, you know, and they're also, you know, worth more gold. So if you need the gold, then you go to a higher rated one. But, you know, it's a risk reward, right? You know, we see here a legendary skill, but Radiant Corsair is probably the hardest enemy in the game right now. So like there's a lot of reward, but there's also a lot of risk. So now we'll just kind of go into, events and random encounters, and we'll also talk about some character specific ones as well. So early in the game, we get a lot of these ones. So these are like, it's a third option. It's, we get a strange mushroom. We find a strange mushroom and we get some kind of reward in an hour. Eating contest, we can buy some chocolate bars that gives us more HP. Jungle ruins, it gives us, a reward that we can select as well. Mandala, we can transform our items. It's like a second, third option that we can take in order to get some kind of reward. And, we can get an item, we can get XP, we can get whatever. And this goes all the way into the end of the game, basically, where we have all of these random encounters that do different things. And we just want to go through some character-specific ones as well. We've gone through some merchants. Now, there are some character-specific monsters as well. Vanessa has her own. She has the bounty hunter. But the other characters don't really have their own specific enemy yet. So, Pig has Economic Seminar, which is character specific, where we get an economic item or skill. And then we have Dooley's Workshop. Pig also has Investment Pitch as well, where we get a kind of reward. So that's encounters, and in combination with that, an explanation of XP in-game. Not out of game, because we know about that and how we level up the prize pass, but in-game. How does XP work? How do the hours work? That's kind of what we've gone over just there. So now we have our first character that we're going to discuss. We're going to go through all the characters in the game and give a brief overview. We're going to go through, what they're about, what are some of the things that they focus on, and then we'll have a look at some common build archetypes as well as just have a look at what expansions they have. We won't go through the items, but we'll have a look at what expansions they have. So first we have Vanessa. Very aggressive character. She's probably the most aggressive character in the game because she just loves to do damage, really. She's all about damage. She works a lot off of poison, burn, and just regular weapon damage. And she does have a lot of focus on haste and slow in a lot of the expansions and in her base set of items as well. So we talked about haste and slow before, and we talked about those damage types, and that's kind of what Vanessa's about. She's about aggressiveness, I guess, is probably the best way to sum her up. So we'll just have a look at some common build archetypes that kind of exemplify this. So we can see here, we're talking about poison, burn, and haste before. This is a great example. We have Clamor, which is a start of fight, use this item, so it gets us going nice and quickly. And then we also have a fiery pufferfish, which activates off of haste procs. And we just have a lot of haste. So we have dive weights, we have captain's wheel, which hastes adjacent items, and then we have the other wheel here, whatever it's called, I forget now, but this hastes all of our items. And when we use adjacent items, we charge it. So we have a nice low cooldown of about 2.5 seconds here because we have a large item. And we're just doing a lot of haste, we're doing a lot of burn, a lot of poison. We have a little bit of defense, admittedly, but that's not really what the build's about. We also have some great skills here as well. So we have Inexorable, which is good crit chance. We have a little bit of shield freeze as well. Toxic Flame is kind of the highlight here, this one here. So it's whenever we burn, our poison items get more poison, and whenever we poison, our poison items get... And whenever we poison, our burn items get more burn. So it's, vice versa, basically. And because of our enchant here on our puffer, it works really well. So this is kind of what Vanessa's about. This is kind of an archetype, is the aquatic / haste archetype. And we'll have a look at some other ones now as well. So this one right here, we have the slow archetype and weapons. So we can see here we have holsters, which is a nice, quick start. And then we also have... a haste potion. So we do have a lot of haste, but then the focus on this is slow because we have a proboscis. And what this does is when we slow, it deals damage. We obviously have some good high rolls on skills. So we have big ego, we have bloodhound, and we just have a lot of items here like shot glasses, which haste and slows all of our items. Hamlet as well, which is a weapon that charges off slow. So there's just a lot of things that work off of haste and slow on Vanessa. And this is a great example of a weapons archetype, whereas last time we were looking at something that was a non-weapons board that worked off of haste, whereas this one is a weapons board that works off of haste. And, you know, I won't go through the intricacies of the whole thing, but it is a really good board. So this is a more, you know, maybe a more regular board. It's not regular by any means, but it's still, you know, we're looking at the wide weapons Vanessa archetype here. So we just put a bunch of weapons on the board. You know, we have Atlatl, which is a bit of a high roll. We have some items from other heroes, but what we have is just a lot of slow, which goes well with Trange, which scales all of our weapons damage. And then we just have a bunch of weapons on our board. So we're really getting the most out of this skill and some other weapon skills by just having all of these weapons on our board and just doing a bunch of damage, which is what Vanessa's about in the end, is just doing a lot of damage in different ways. It's all about aggressiveness. So this is another archetype that I want to look at. We have single weapon Vanessa, which is a very traditional build. You know, you see it in a lot of Northern Lion videos, and you see it in a lot of early Bazaar. And even now, it's still solid if you get a good build going. But what we have here is, it revolves kind of around the Crow's Nest and one weapon. And Katana's a great option here. So what the goal is of this is to scale the crit chance with Crow's Nest and skills of this thing, and we use lifesteal to stay alive while also dealing, you know, a reasonably large amount of damage, basically. So, you know, some essential parts of this build are really, you know, a suppressor, silencer, sorry, which, you know, does really well in one weapon builds because it reduces the cooldown, and then obviously Crow's Nest as well. So they obviously prioritize the crit chance and slow here for charge, which makes sense. But if they flip this, they would also get the damage bonus of the silencer, but it's probably better than the way that they've got it. But yeah, this is the, you know, it's a slight high roll into that archetype, but it's a very, very traditional one weapon build. You know, we just have a weapon, we have a Crow's Nest, and that's what, you know, Vanessa can be about in some cases. So that's Vanessa. That's what she's about. She's about aggressiveness in different ways. Now we go to Dooley. Now Dooley is probably my favorite character in the game. I've done a guide on him before, and I really, I'm working on a really advanced guide for Dooley. So we talked about Vanessa trying to be as aggressive as possible. Dooley is similar, but in a different way. So Vanessa wants to do as much damage as possible, but Dooley just kind of wants to go as fast as possible. Dooley is all about going quick. And how does he do this? So Dooley has a lot of charge-related items. So we see in a lot of item descriptions, we see charge. So when, you know, when we burn, charge this 1 second, or when we poison, charge this 1 second. And a good example of this is the drill, which is whenever we haste, slow, burn, poison, whenever we do one of those, we charge or freeze. Whenever we do one of those, we charge it for 2 seconds. So Dooley's all about going quick, right? Now he obviously does have a unique part of him, which is the cores, which we'll go over briefly. Just have a look at the different ones. We won't explain what they are because that'll take time, but we'll have a look at that feature. But that's kind of what he's about. Now he does focus particularly, like he likes to specialize. So like if we want to go for a freeze Dooley build, that's kind of what we're locked in on. We just do freeze. And if we're going for like, you know, ignition core or weaponized core, our main priority is to just do damage or just do burn. That's kind of what it's all about. So we'll just have a look at these cores quickly because they are a big part of his kit and they are very, very important. So we can see here we have different cores. We'll ignore the combat core because it is an item with the core tag, but we'll have a look at everything else. So we have the armored core, which shields. And the whole idea with a core, most of them at least, is that something on the left happens, and then something on the right happens, mostly. So when we use the item to the left of an armored core, we charge the armored core 1 second, and then this and shield items gain shield when we use it. And so we have ignition core, which is similar. So when we use any item to the left, we charge it, and this and burn items to the right gain burn. And weaponized core is this and weapons gain, you know, this amount of damage for the fight. Now, the other ones are a little bit different. So critical chance. So crit core is, you know, this and items to the left have plus crit chance to the right, sorry. When we use any item to the left, we charge it 1 second. But when we also when we crit, we charge it 1 second. Then we have the core, which is also similar, but a little different. So we charge all items to the right of this 1 second. And when we use any item to the left, we charge this 1 second. So slightly different. And then Primal Core and Companion Core are kind of the only ones that don't work on items being to the left or right. So Companion Core is just whenever we use another friend, we charge this 1 second, and then we haste adjacent items. And Primal Core is whenever we use a dinosaur or a relic, we charge it. It also gives adjacent items a relic tag. We also, it does damage, and it scales our dinosaur and relic weapons. It scales their damage. So that's the cores, and you get these at level 3 on Dooley as a reward for leveling up. That's what you can build around it. You don't have to. It's typically good, for a little bit. You can spec out of it later, but these things are really, really great, and it's an essential part of his kit. So let's have a look at some build archetypes. So we have this one from Big Slider. This is the press. So the press is an item that it gains tags. So like we have, fiber optics, which is a tech weapon, which is a tech item. Then we have Uzi, which is a small weapon. Cloak, which is an apparel. The remote control, which is a tech item. So it gains tags, and then it gets damage relative to those tags. And now we've enchanted it with obsidian, which doubles its damage. And we'll talk about enchantments later and what they do. But essentially, this is an archetype. Is just press builds. And we have this remote control, which is use the core. And this thing here can gain the core type. So we're charging this with the Uzi because fiber optics, when we use our leftmost item, we charge our rightmost item. Uzi is a nice quick item, so we put this on the left, we're charging this remote, and when this goes off, we use this, and we deal 10,946 damage. So that's an archetype, is these press builds. Now we have Freeze Dooley. So Freeze Dooley kind of, usually it centers around the nitrogen hammer. It doesn't always. But what we see here is just a lot of freeze items. So Kyro Sleeve, it reduces the freeze on your items by half. And it also freezes adjacent items on its cooldown. We have Blue Beetles here, which freeze a certain amount of items for half a second. And then we have I think it's the Ice Watch Warden or something, which whenever we freeze, burn, or poison, it charges it. And then it freezes and charges adjacent items. And then the Nitrogen Hammer over here charges on freeze procs for 1 second. It's a 10-second cooldown, so 10 freeze procs is a full charge of it. And at Diamond, it also gains 200 damage. So this is Freeze Dooley. It's just a lot of interruption, right? Freeze is another core mechanic, which I haven't really explained, but it stops your items from activating, and it stops their cooldown from naturally progressing. You can still charge items, but they won't go off. They will just sit at the top while they're still frozen. They won't actually activate. And their cooldown won't naturally progress. So it won't go 10, 9, 8. But if you have charge on it, and you can charge it, it does that still, but it just doesn't activate, basically. So this is Freeze Dooley. And now we have a core build on Dooley. So we're using the Ignition Core, and we just have a lot of burn stuff on board. Now, this is kind of a high roll, because we do have this quest item for Mac that scales for burn really highly. And when we burn, it scales as well, which is obviously important. But we can see here, the idea with this is that the core scales itself with burn, and we've just put a lot of really quick items to the left in order to make the core go nice and quickly, and scale the core's burn, and scale, I forget what this item is called, but scale this item's burn as well. It's a quest item, but on Mac. I can't remember all the items in the game, okay? I've done it once where I've gone through all of the items and named them all, but I can't remember all of them. So we can see here when we talk about Dooley and how he focuses on one thing. So far from what we've seen Freeze Dooley, which focuses on freeze. We've seen the press, which just focuses on pure damage and activating the core. Now we see, burn, Ignition Core Dooley, which, primarily focuses on burn. There's a bit of poison in here as well, but it's mostly burn. Now we have Dino Dooley, kind of part of the new expansion. We have dinosaurs. So we have Mamasaur and Dinosaur, which is when we destroy an item, all of our dinosaurs gain damage. We talked about the Primal Core before and how when we use a dinosaur, it charges it. We also have Dinosaur, which is a nice low cooldown item as long as we have 4 other dinosaurs, tools, or relics, I believe. And now Mamasaur, Dinosaur, and Trollosaur here all destroy an item. So we can get a lot of destruction there, which meta scales our dinosaur's damage. So the dinosaurs in and of itself is like an archetype, basically, for Dooley, because you just run dinosaurs and you do some kind of meta scaling. or you just rely on the destruction to destroy your opponent's items and win games in that way, because when you destroy an item, you can't use it again. Yeah, so dinosaurs is an archetype as well. Now, we were talking about charge earlier as a really core part of Dooley's mechanics, and this is an example of it. So this isn't necessarily a build archetype, what we're seeing, because, you know, Boulder isn't a Dooley item. But the charge is. So we can see here we have the core, which is from, if we remember, it charges items to the right, and it also gains charge from items on the left. So we have Atomic Clock, which is a nice low cooldown item. Then we have Light Bulb, which is the same. And we're effectively just charging the boulder in order to do a bunch of damage. And that's it. So charge, and it kind of ties into tech as well, because we are charging a tech item using the Light Bulb. And we have some tech stuff on board, which is another archetype, which isn't as prevalent at the moment because Railgun got nerfed. Because a lot of Dooley's tech items work really well with each other. You know, Railgun gets charged when you use a tech item. Arc Blaster gets charged when you use a tech item. And, you know, the core, most cores are tech items as well. So tech builds are quite prevalent as well in terms of archetypes. But this one, just in terms of charge and, you know, putting something big on the right of the core is another archetype as well. So now that we have covered Dooley, we're going to move on to Pygmalien. Now, Pygmalien is all about high impact items, really. Now, that has kind of changed with this recent expansion, but what we have is, you know, a lot of really high value items that rely on meta scaling, like Money Tree, like, you know, Subscraper, like Skyscraper, that rely on having high impact, you know, with a couple of casts, basically, because some of these items are slow, you know, like a double whammy, you know, they just rely on big hits, you know, that's what they're all about. So yeah, Pygmalien focuses almost purely on big numbers. That's kind of what he's about, is big numbers, whether that's on a Money Tree, whether that's on a Silk, that's what he is about, is big numbers. Value is almost always important, so, you know, we think back, I mentioned it earlier, when we think about something like Money Tree, which gains value and it heals equal to double the value of itself. It gains value off of things like spare change, you know, like a rewards card. That's what Pygmalien's about. It's about a value, it's about big numbers. More recently, it is about value, but it's less about high impact, and there's a little bit more charge archetypes. But we'll have a look through some of Pyg's build archetypes because it'll be a little bit easy to explain the different things that we see there. The first one we have, which is kind of contrary to the high impact items, is Drum Pig. So Drum Pig relies on fast weapons that just go very quickly. So things like an Atlatl, things like a Yo-Yo, where we are scaling its damage and going very quickly, because that's what it relies on item activations, weapon activations to, you know, scale our weapons by a certain amount of damage and haste it. So obviously Trebuchet works really well on this because it scales off of weapon usage and haste. Atlatl's nice and quick, Yo-Yo's nice and quick, and so is our Ventriloquist doll over there on the left. So essentially what this is just, you know, very fast weapon usage. And if we get that Atlatl at high enough damage, its cooldown gets reduced and, you know, etc, it just goes really quickly. This is one of the exceptions. Another one of the kind of exceptions, which is somewhat part of the new expansion, but we won't cover that in this one, is we see here a lot of shield and rapid multicast items with a lot of scaling in some different ways. So this relies a lot on charge. So Yo-Yo is a very fast item, and on either side we can see it has 8 multicast, which means that when those items go off, Yo-Yo is going to go off very quickly because it relies on adjacent items proccing, and then it gains charge from that. And when, you know, Yo-Yo goes to Diamond, essentially when we use an adjacent item, Yo-Yo gets used as well. And so we can see we have Pen FT, and we have Sponsored Apparel, and Sponsored Apparel shields when we use an item over a certain amount of value. Then Wrist Warrior to the right of that does damage when the item to the left shields. So we're going to be getting a lot of shield and a lot of damage, and as such, Poison, which scales our Barb Spike Warden there, which scales our Poison item. It's very complex, the synergies, but we can see kind of we're getting some charge mechanics, which we were talking about. We're getting some shield, we're getting some scaling from Barb Spike Warden. This is the kind of Pyg charge archetype, is that we have a lot of items that go fast with high value. So things like Sponsored Apparel and Premium Piggles, which we'll go over later. That's what this build is about. And now we were looking at this build earlier, but this is the more traditional pig, really big numbers. We have Pawn Shot at a really high value of 753. And then we have Lion's Cane, which does damage relative to our health. So Pawn Shot gives us HP relative to its value. Then we have Belt, which also, this gives us 75% more HP at gold. And then Lemonade Stand gives us regen relative to our max HP as well. So we just have a bunch of max HP stuff, and it's big numbers. That's what this is about. It's about the big numbers. It's a little bit more simple than the other ones. So we can kind of see here a nice little blend between the two different types of pig scaling. When we talk about pig numbers, that is. So we have value scaling, which is money tree here. So this thing's worth around, let's say 350, 360, because it heals, equal to double its value. That's value scaling, but now we have a more traditional form of scaling, which isn't value related, which is we sell a non-weapon item and we gain shield on our silk here. And then Crusher Claw does damage equal to our highest shield item. And that's what we talk about. Big numbers with pig. We're getting a lot of scaling outside, not like in our games, and that's what that's about. It's just big numbers. Pig's all about big numbers, man. That's what he's about. That's his character. He's all about money and big numbers. So we talked about Pygmalien. Now we'll move on to our last character that has been released. There are still some more characters to come, but we have Mac. So Mac is an alchemist. And so, you think of alchemists, they brew potions and they turn lead into gold and all that sort of stuff. So in the game, we associate this with things like poison, burn, slow, and regen. So that's kind of what Mac operates off of a lot, is those archetypes. He does do damage in certain builds as well, but that's relative to things like slow. He does have damage exclusive stuff, but that's, a more specific archetype. So Mac he does a lot of in-fight scaling. There are specific things that are out of fight, but a lot of his builds rely on that. Like a lot of his quest items rely on in-fight scaling. We think about slow builds with something like Magnus Femur that relies on in-fight scaling. And out of all the characters, I think Mac maybe has the most diverse ways to play. Like it's very easy to go into like a non-weapon weapons, like hybrid sort of build. It's very easy to go into a pure weapons build. There's a lot of very different build archetypes for Mac. And we'll go through a couple of them, but there's a lot of them, so we won't cover them all. I'm not doing specific amounts for these. I'm just kind of, checking through the Discord a little bit and just chucking a couple up on board and analyzing them. So we can see here, we were talking about poison and slow earlier, and burn. And what we have here is a Poppy Field build. So Poppy Field is an item that scales our weapons damage relative to the amount of poison our enemy has. So if our enemy has more poison, our weapons will do more damage. So when we use a weapon, we poison our enemy for the amount on Poppy Field here. Now this is one of his build archetypes, is Poppy Field weapons stuff. It's quite simple. We have a lot of really fast weapons. Some of them gain charge, like Spider Mace, but some of them are just really fast, like the Fang. And he has some great skills to complement this, but, that's what this is about. Is about the, just having quick weapons with a Poppy Field, because the weapons will do enough damage eventually. Like, they will get a lot of damage really quickly. Now we have Slow / Magnus Femur Mac. This is a slightly different one from what you'd usually see, because we have an item like the Plasma Grenade, which, isn't traditionally a Mac item. But we have the Magnus Femur, which is kind of the keystone for all of these builds, because it charges based off of slow and gets damage based off of slow. So I believe at gold, it's a 15-second item, but whenever we slow, any individual slow proc, we gain 2 seconds of charge, and it gains 50 damage. So we have just a lot of items that enable that. We're just trying to slow as much as possible, and then we have a runic potion here which grants it lifesteal, which means that we don't heal, but we just gain that amount of HP back. So it's not similar to the heal mechanic, because we don't get that cleanse, but we just get the amount of HP back. Plasma Grenade slows all of our enemy items, so we can imagine that would be pretty great. Lots of slow there. I believe it's Ambergris here. It, just adds a second of slow duration to all of our items, so we get to slow the enemy for more time. And so yes, slow Mac is a big archetype. So now we have, I would call this regen Mac, or not quite regen, but more to do with quest items. Quest items on Mac are an item that you have to fulfill a set of requirements. So for this item here, we have to buy 8 poison items in order to give it some scaling in fight. So whenever we poison, it gains more poison. And when it reaches 75 poison, it gains multicast forever. So we can see here it's 9x2. So they've bought, they've bought 8 poison items, and they've poisoned enough in a fight to make it scale all the way up to 75, and it gains multicast. So we can see here we have this one here as a quest item, this one here as a quest item, this one here as a quest item. So quest Mac is its own archetype, because a lot of them rely on having multiple quest items or relics, which is another big tag. So blank slate here in the middle charges off of adjacent relic procs. So we can see we have some multicast relics next to them, so blank slate is going to be going nice and quickly. So we were talking about pure weapons Mac earlier, and this is basically what it is. So we have carpet, which is an integral bit, and this is all about critical damage, crit Mac. So this item here, Runic Axe, gives all of our lifesteal weapons 100% crit chance. And this little darkened thing means it has lifesteal. So you have 100% crit chance, which means you do double damage. You have 100% crit, you have 100% crit, and then this lifesteal potion is going to give you lifesteal, which means you also have 100% crit. And they have a little bit of scaling here as well. Whenever we crit, this gives us 5 more damage on all of our weapons. But the main source of damage is going to come from you, which doubles it. Whenever we crit, it doubles in damage. And this is going to go all the way down to 1 second, because whenever we crit, carpet gets its cooldown reduced by 1 second. So this is pure weapons Mac, basically, is just all the weapons that we need. And it's just basically a focus on damage. We get lifesteal, but it's more about the damage. Now we have another archetype of Mac at the moment, which is Regen. Regen Mac, because we have some items that scale really well. So Life Conduit right now is really great in the game. You can just get a load and a load of regen and just basically become unkillable. Unless you get one shot, you basically just don't die. Yeah, it's just, this is similar to the poison item, where whenever we gain regen, it'll gain more regen on it. And it's the same thing with the quest, where we have to buy regen items to give it that scaling. So Regen Mac is a big archetype right now. And this one's great as well, because whenever we heal or gain regen, we gain, like, a poison item gets charged. So we heal and gain regen up here. We gain regen here. We gain regen here whenever we use a non-weapon item. We heal over here. So these items are going to be getting a lot of charge, basically, is really all there is to it. So that's Mac. He's an alchemist. He does all sorts of funky stuff. Now we're going to talk briefly about collections and cosmetics. We've had a look at it briefly as well, but we'll just go through it in the game. So if we go back here and we go to collections, this is stuff we get from chests. Basically, it is the simplified version of it. It's not just from like chests, but we have card skins. This is at small, medium, and large. I'm not going to scroll through the whole thing because it'll take forever. Then we have character skins. We have custom boards we can get as well. Then we also have card backs. We have rugs. We have banks we can get. We also have stashes we can get as well. And then we also can get music as well, custom music in the game. So we get this stuff from chests. We also get it from the prize pass as well. So, we get it, let's see, at level 40 here, we get a bank. And then we also can get it from the shop as well, which has a daily and weekly shop. Typically, it's like a diamond item in here, then it's usually a legendary item in here. And then we can also get it in the last spot from subscriptions. So you get typically like an item of some kind from your subscription. That's kind of all there is to cosmetics. We get those things from that. Although actually you can get it from rank up rewards as well. You can get rugs That's probably the last spot you can get it from. Okay, so now we're going to go over our starting choices. So when we first get into our game, we are first presented with 3 choices. Do we want to start with golden income? Do we want to start with a small enchanted item? Or do we want to start with a gold tier skill? So when we play the game, let's say we start with Vanessa, we load in and we're just going to get presented with the 3 choices. And I'm going to explain, the pros and cons of each one, and briefly explain what I think is best for beginners. There's on most characters I pick enchanted item. So we go in here, we can see plus 12 gold, plus 2 income, choose an enchanted item, and we also get 6 gold, and we start with a gold tier skill. I find with the current state of the game, gold tier skill isn't my favorite, because on day 1 our board gets bigger. So if we have less money, it's going to be harder to fill up our board because we have to buy items with money. So I like going for an enchanted item because it gives us more gold and an item. And then I like going for golden income because this enables us to buy more items to fill up our board. Now, what are my picks in order? For a beginner, I would probably go for gold and income because it just lets you buy whatever you want and you can kind of just build your synergies a little bit easier. Then enchanted item would be my second favorite just because we get that bonus gold, and enchanted items can be really good in the early game or in the late game in some cases. Gold tier skill is maybe the most difficult because it's quite hard to fill up your board. Now, gold tier skills can be amazing, we can get lots of damage, lots of poison, lots of whatever from it. But it can be tricky because we get 3 gold tier skills and sometimes we can just get screwed over. And it's the same with enchanted items. Sometimes we just get a really crappy enchanted item, but in this case we have the 6 gold to fall back on. Whereas in this one we get a gold tier skill and we get no money and we get nothing to fall back on, so it can be a little bit tricky in that case. So gold tier skills aren't the greatest. That's kind of it. I don't really have an outro planned for this, but that's my beginner guide to the Bazaar. I don't have I stream sometimes on Twitch and on YouTube if you want to tune in. But for the most part, thank you for watching. If you're new to the game, drop any questions below and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Like, comment, and subscribe as well. I'm trying to grow the channel. I really enjoy the game. I love making content. And it really helps out the channel a lot. So I really appreciate you guys for watching through this video, getting all the way to the end, if that's what you did. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.